bow in an attitude of prayer. Gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for the night of rest. Thank you for this day. Lord, we lift up our teachers, administrators, and all the support staff at our local Washington County Board of Education. And Lord, we lift up also the approximately 22,000 students. Just ask for your blessings and guidance and safety and protection around each and every one of them. Lead, guide, and direct us this day as we deliberate, that we serve others first and foremost. We ask these things in thy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This time we'll go ahead and officially call our August 29th Board of County Commissioners meeting to order. First on the agenda is Commissioners' reports and comments. And
no minutes, right? We didn't have any, okay.
Minutes are not ready.
Good morning. Really, first of all, I want to thank staff for last week at Hancock for the comprehensive plan presentation. Well done. Had attendance, and I thought everything was well prepared. So anybody involved in that, I thank you. And then this week, Thursday evening at 6 o'clock at Special Events Building for the Fire Hall in Clear Spring is the another presentation of the comprehensive plan. So if anybody wants to go, it'd be Thursday evening at 6 o'clock down there by where the carnival grounds is. Unless you want to hear about a dentist and my grandson football, I think I'm done for today. So.
Did they win?
No, they lost.
Mr. Keefer?
Yeah, thank you. As Commissioner Wagner said, I appreciate staff who helped with the comprehensive plan. I intend to attend several of those meetings, and the first one had a good turnout. Good mix of people who kind of want the community to stay as is, and some people who think that there should be more attention to some economic activity, some tourism in particular in the western part of the county. One citizen, I forget who it was, but made a good comment I heard in one of the breakout groups that I was in when we were talking about some roads in particular that are included in the comprehensive plan and some that are not. It seems like maybe we copy and paste some of what the state identifies as a priority, but that's not our priority. And the citizen said if we don't mention it, the impact, we're saying that impact doesn't exist in our county. And in particular, I think that was about a roadway and bringing tourism into the western part of Washington County. So I thought that was an interesting concept. We need to make sure as we go through our comprehensive plan, if it's not mentioned, we're telling the state, we're telling the federal government it doesn't exist if it's not part of our comprehensive plan. And then those entities have to work together for funding, and that this is our opportunity to prioritize something important in our community. So I just wanted to make note of that. Labor Day is upon us. A huge thank you to our staff who worked hard to keep the county chugging along. There's always difficulties, I'm sure, but I thank our staff for laboring through this last year. And our taxpayers, of course, as well, that work to help us pay our bills. As Commissioner Barr mentioned in the prayer, and I appreciate that, the comment about the first day of school, just want to end on this. I don't think it would be considered a poem, but something that I've seen passed around on social media about how parents can help with their children in the school. And it's called Parents Can Help. In each letter, Parents Can Help of that sentence is just a reminder of how parents can really play a big part in their child's lives and as they go through school, and that could make some issues, some things that we see in our school system that aren't working so well, maybe work a little better. So for parents, P, provide a quiet place to work. A, arrange a place for your child's work materials. R, review your child's schoolwork, E, establish a daily routine with your child. N, notice your child's progress. T, talk to your child about school. S, spend time working with your child. That's parents. Can, confer with teachers regularly. A, allow your child to make choices. N, notify the school if you need assistance and help. Have a positive attitude about your child's school. Expect your child to work, but avoid undue pressure. L, look to all experiences as learning opportunities. And P, praise your child's effort. I think from what I hear from teachers, administrators, some of the difficulties facing the education system today, a lot of it can start or be solved at home. And I just thought that was a nice reminder that I saw for parents out there that may be listening. It starts with us. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Harvey?
Yeah, thank you, Wayne, for that insight. I echo those thoughts, and I think it's really important. I'm glad you brought that up. And Randy, thank you for not using all your time, because I'm going to use a little bit of it, okay?
Go figure.
So here we go. First of all, I'd like to ask the staff to let me know whether or not we are actually advertising on Facebook about the comprehensive planning sessions, okay? Not just posting it on our web pages, but advertising it. I, too, am interested in the comprehensive plan, and I still have a lot to learn about it. I've read through it, and I've taken a lot of notes, and I went to that meeting, and I still have a lot of questions, and it's not an easy thing to digest. That said, I'm going to shift gears a little bit, and I'm going to relay some concerns that I've been hearing from citizens for some time now. I've heard from a number of citizens in Hagerstown, and as well as individual police officers, and then a few of my observations about that. And these concerns are about public safety, policing, and their impact on economic growth and revitalization. Revitalization, redevelopment, and productive, thriving communities depend on a sense of security and public safety. In fact, both a sense of security and public safety are considered prerequisites, and there is a direct correlation to investment, business activity, customer traffic, and housing development and general revitalization tied to that sense of public security. It's important in developing an area as a viable and desirable place for people to live. And a simple question that I ask myself to bring some focus to this is, does a young professional, a mom with their kids, or a school teacher want to live, work, and play in an area? As some of you know, I've studied, researched, and consulted with local governments and police departments on these very same issues. And public safety and a sense of security are directly related to customer traffic, business growth. And we are very fortunate that we have a number of courageous investors and community leaders who have invested and who are trying to make a difference in downtown Hagerstown. And we've seen, as we've seen with the stadium plan and other investments. But I'm concerned, and so are other citizens that have brought it to my attention, that some of these underlying concerns about public safety, they're worried because they think that it could have an impact on these investments and the opportunities we have for revitalization downtown. These concerns about public safety, the use of drugs, hanging out in door stoops, smoking marijuana publicly right next to Maryland Theater, needles found on the sidewalk, and even prostitution. It's not good. Open, flagrant drug use now has been brought to my attention as a more common problem since July 1st. It's not a good sign. I've also heard frustrations about police response times or calls just being logged without a response, such as when what we're now calling, I guess, non-in-progress calls where they just log in the information. Other complaints are about a lack of response, it being too late, and a sense that there's no sense in calling the police unless they just want to get a property claim and file an insurance claim. So those are things I've been hearing about, and worries about whether or not the investment in the stadium and the others are going to pay off in the long run unless we really address these concerns about public safety. And those are our constituents, not just the city of Hagerstown's constituents. And public safety and the concerns in the city and how it's addressed impact how the county sheriff's department works and the stress and demands on them too. So what am I thinking? I'd like to understand what is the reality, separated from the noise, about what the situation is in the city relative to crime, petty crime, etc. And I'd like to see if we can get some data from the city and from our sheriff's department to understand what's really going on better and what the plans are. Perhaps a city-county meeting like we had with the water issues to explore data, resources, trends might be a good first step. I think this needs to be addressed as more than a business as normal way. I don't think it should only be a meeting between the police chief and the county sheriff, but it needs to include elected leadership. We need to look at getting a good diagnosis and acknowledge that there may in fact be a real problem. And I think unity of effort and unity of purpose between the county and the city is important, because we can't help, Mr. Barr, we can't help the city get better unless we know and are included a little bit more and can help them move forward. So I don't believe that our issues can be resolved by more awareness campaigns or more treatment centers. It's not sufficient. We need more education, but we also need more police presence and community policing. Quantity has its own quality of its own. I learned that in many other places around the country. I would hope that our staff could work with the city and perhaps the sheriff department to actually get the numbers of police officers on the rolls, authorized and for duty in each year from 2015 to the present, so we really understand the trends. Because my understanding from sources within the police department is there's been a dramatic decline in the number of police working in the city. That's a major concern. The less police there are there, the more demand there is for the sheriff's department. I'm also told that there's a challenge in recruitment and retention of police officers in the city. And we know that it's difficult to recruit and retain people in the police forces in the current environment. But although we know pay and benefits do matter, we also know that elected leadership and police leadership matter. It's more than just pay and benefits. It's about knowing that your leadership has your back. It's knowing that the leadership is going to fight for you through their actions, pay and also words, but also through actions. They need to know that their political leaders are going to do what's necessary to improve policing, improve public safety, and improve a sense of security in the city if we're going to move the county and the city forward. And I know that was long, but I think it's something that needs to be out on the table. I've been thinking about it for some time. And I just hope that we can work together. And if you could reach out to the city and see if we can do something together, county administrator, and also work with our sheriff to see if we can pull something together.
Yes, I'll take care of it.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I do want to, for the record, say happy birthday to Asher Harvey, who celebrated his 7th birthday over the weekend, I believe. So for the record, happy birthday, Asher. I also attended the comp plan up in Hancock. It was, thanks staff, it was very well organized, and thanks to those who attended. Williamsport celebrated its 47th C&O Canal Day, so congratulations to the town and that committee who had a wonderful turnout, another great event. And I also went down to the Ag Center Saturday, and they have their annual Spud Fest Heritage Days, and that's where they get an old plow and a bunch of big horses and plow up the potatoes, and the kids go out with buckets and giving prizes for the smallest potato, the biggest potato. But it was good to look around to see so many parents involved with their kids at a day down at Ag Center that shows the agricultural history of our county and the kids being introduced to that. And I also attended Everybody's Day up at Penmar Park, a beautiful pavilion, a beautiful view. A special thanks to our rec department who helped organize that event, and to Faye Powers for over 30 years of making sure that music series continues. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention her late husband, Jim Powers, who was also part of that music series. So congratulations to those at Everybody's Day. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Yes, a lot happening in the past week, as you've heard. Just again, keep mindful of the students headed back to school yesterday, and buses are on the roads, and just folks need to be cognizant of where they're at, where they're going, and how fast they're driving, and just be very, very much concerned about somewhere between 22 and 23,000 students in our community that are in school every day. So, and thanks to the teachers and all that they do. With that, I'd just like to briefly mention a couple upcoming events. Tonight is Commissioners' meeting at Town Hall in Keedysville. So we'll have our annual meeting with the folks, the mayor and council of Keedysville and the citizens in that community. Also, it was mentioned here this morning, the Comprehensive Plan 2040 meeting, which is Thursday evening, August 31st at Clear Spring Fire Company Special Events Building. The grand reopening of the Smithsburg High School Stadium Friday night. Some wonderful improvements there to the stadium and the field, and hats off to a number of citizens, particularly in the Smithsburg area, that have, for the past year or two, have really gone out of their way to fundraise and support major improvements to the sports facilities at Smithsburg High School. Also upcoming is the annual Remembrance Parade Monday, September the 11th at 6:30 p.m. in Boonesboro, Maryland. So keep that on your radar screen. Anything else for here this morning that we've forgotten, commissioners? Hearing none, we'll move into citizen or staff comments. I'm sorry. And first up on staff comments is Dave Mason. And is Tony here? Tony Dury? Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just a couple quick things for you. October 14th, we're planning another scrap tire event sponsored by State of Maryland and MES. They've allotted $60,000 $30,000 for this event, which will allow us to bring in about 100 tons of tires. We had one last September. We brought in about 25 tons. We limited the citizens to 5 tires each. This time we'll allow them 10 tires each. So since our allotment was increased, we'll allow them to bring in more tires. The second thing, on that same day, October 14th, we're going to try something a little bit different. We're going to have Goodwill on site with one of their collections trucks. And if citizens have good stuff that they don't want to throw away but they don't know what to do with, they can bring it in. And Goodwill may take it if it's good enough for them to accept and resell. The only caveat is if they don't accept it, they'll have to dispose of it properly, going across the scales or whatever they want to do with it. But, so just wanted to give that little piece of information, and there is a agreement in the back. I think Kirk's office has it for the scrap tire event. Any questions?
Is that the first time we've ever done Goodwill?
Yes. We've been talking about it for a while, haven't really pulled it together. We'd like to see how it works.
I bet if you know, a lot of people are not going to hear about it only because it's sort of happening now.
Right.
I bet if even it wasn't great, I bet if in the future, I bet that would go over big.
We've talked about trying to do something on a regular basis, like,
Yeah.
you know, say the second Saturday of every month, have Goodwill there, or something like that.
I think that's a pretty good idea, actually.
So we're gonna try it out, see how it works, and then we'll kind of expand on it if it doesn't.
Dave, is there a size limit on those tires? I mean, is it ag tires or?
This is just citizens tires, so it's regular passenger car tires.
Okay,
We
just-
did the ag event in, when was it? July, I believe. The ag event was, well, we did one this summer, and we collected 122 tons of tires for that 4-day event.
Dave, would there be any opportunity to, maybe not for this go-around, but collect the tires at some of our transfer stations throughout the county so we can reach the far corners of Washington County?
That's a little tougher, only because other than Greensburg, we really don't have the space to hold tires. Ketzel and Dargan are very tight as it is.
So for one day, we couldn't just have just a regular dumpster to collect the tires, and we dispose of them however you do, but just,
We can look into that, but the logistics of, like I said, those smaller transfer stations just make it tough.
okay.
Because like if we put another dumpster at Ketzel, then we don't have a empty spot when we start switching out dumpsters. So what they do now is they drop a dumpster off in the empty slot, pick up a full one, and then just keep moving those dumpsters around. So if we put an extra dumpster there, we don't have a spot for, you know, the first empty one to pull. You know.
Well, I'm in Hancock almost every Saturday morning.
Yes.
I think there might be a little space
Well,
there.
Hancock
Yeah.
probably does have the space, but like Ketzel and Dorgan, they don't. But we can look into maybe Greensburg and Hancock as potential
Okay.
sites. Yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Is there any other staff comments?
I have a few things. I just want to echo what all of the commissioners said regarding the comp plan. I did attend the meeting last week in Hancock. I do encourage the public to provide input, either in writing or through email. Last week, I did meet with our directors for a monthly staff meeting and information sharing session. I also attended one of the back-to-school nights last week at Salem Avenue with my family, just kind of echo what Commissioner Keefer said and add to that, that it really just takes a village to raise children and raise a family. So, and just want to let you know that I attended that. I attended the C&O Canal Days in Williamsport. I also attended the town managers meeting yesterday in Hancock. This meeting is an information sharing session between all of the town managers, and it was really nice to get to meet all of them. To add to Commissioner Barr's comments regarding upcoming events, I want to remind the commissioners that on September the 12th, we will have our Employee Service Awards in the morning, and that's why our meeting on September the 12th will be starting a little bit late. And then we also have the Remembrance in the Park that will be held on the evening of September the 12th, and that's at Hagerstown City Park at the Emergency Service Tribute Garden. There is no meeting next week, and our next meeting is September the 12th. That's everything that I have.
Thank you. Any other staff comments? Hearing none, we'll move right into citizens' participation. Any citizens here this morning that would like to come forward? Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is Chuck Schwalbe. I'm from 19237 Betty's Avenue in Boonesboro, Maryland, and I'm here to represent the Boonesboro Museum of History. This place has been a landmark of Main Street in Boonesboro for almost 50 years, and I'm sure many of you had fond memories of interacting with Doug Boss, its founder. He passed away 2.5 years ago, but wisely, prior to his passing, he established a nonprofit organization, a 501c3, of which I am the president of the board. I'm here because later today, I believe you will be voting on this 1108 list, which makes organizations such as ours eligible for community funding grants. And I will tell you that our grant application is already prepared and ready to be filed. We are very anxious to continue our very aggressive effort to take that museum and all of its holdings from what is essentially a private and little-known collection of important historic artifacts and documents to something which is widely available to researchers and historians and genealogists and families. I have a might be called a strategic plan, a vision document, which I'd like each of the commissioners to have and to take a look at. And it lays out what our plans are for the next potentially 5 or 10 years. It involves some significant improvements of facilities and changing the way the museum is doing business so that it is much more impactful to the citizens of Washington County and those that come here as tourists to visit our great county. Our funding thus far has been hard fought, but I think quite successful. We're well on our way to accomplishing some important goals, and we've received support from the Maryland Heritage Trust, This last legislative session, we received a sizable contribution, award from the legislative session in a bond bill. We've been getting consistent support from the Nora Roberts Foundation. The First Energy has supported us. The commissioners have provided us funding through the community recovery grants, this nonprofit surplus funding, hotel rental tax, gaming commission, and so forth. And also the Washington County Convention and Visitors Bureau has been supportive of our efforts, not only financially, but also in terms of helping us make connections and think through some of the challenges that we have before us. So we are working hard, and we're taking this extremely seriously. We expect that museum to be a consequential part of Washington County. And we can do one of two things. We can either succeed in 5 years with what it is we're trying to do, or we could fail, and we intend to succeed. But that all requires not only our own commitment and efforts, but it requires support from whoever is interested in the kinds of things that we're doing. So we look forward to the support from the commissioners as we go forward. I'd like each of you to have a copy of this, and I would also like to extend an invitation to you to come for a visit to the museum at your own discretion, your own convenience, but we would love to just have an hour or two of your time to show you what it is, not what we have. That's the same old, same old. You've seen one museum, you've seen another, seen them all. But what we would like you to know about is what our ambitions are and what it is we're trying to accomplish here. We're very excited about this, and we're got a great board of directors and a team of volunteers that are working very hard to this end. So with that, I will conclude my comments and again extend my invitation for you to work together to see if we can come out for a visit someday. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, other citizens' participation? Anyone else this morning? Hearing none, then the next item on the agenda is a public hearing concerning the potential inclusion of certain organizations on the I-1-108 list as provided for by Section 1-108 of the Code of Public Local Laws for Washington County. The purpose of this hearing is to hear public testimony concerning the matter. The procedure is as follows. We will first have staff introduce the matter, after which the hearing will be open for public comment and testimony. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to testify. After everyone who wishes to speak has done so, the hearing will close. The commissioners will further consider the matter at an upcoming meeting. Mr. Downey, would you please introduce the matter here this morning?
Sure. Good morning, Commissioners. The Code of Public Local Laws, Section 1-108, provides that the county commissioners may contribute annually to the care, operation, maintenance, or capital expense of nonprofit organizations in Washington County if the amount is included in the regular annual budget of Washington County for that fiscal year. However, for any nonprofit organization to be eligible for that funding, they must first be included on a list maintained by the county commissioners of organizations that are eligible to receive funds under Section 1-108 of the Code of Public Local Laws. Each year, the county commissioners may add to the list organizations who have made application to be included on the list. Those applications need to be made on or before the first day of August preceding the fiscal year in which the organization plans to request funding. And then the county commissioners are required to hold a public hearing on the application. And that is what we are doing this morning. We have received applications from Hospice of Washington County, Inc., the Douglas G. Bass Museum of History and Preservation, Inc., Mason-Dixon Council of the Boy Scouts of America, the Education Foundation of WCPS, Inc., Friends of Key, Inc., Jonathan Street Community Outreach Center, CASA of Western Maryland, Inc., and Liberation, Inc. The applications and their supporting documentation are included in your agenda packets. And at this time, it would be appropriate to open the public hearing for public comment from anyone who wishes to testify on the applications or anyone who's here from those organizations themselves and would like to present any information to the board.
Okay, thank you. It's now open to citizens' comments, public comments, and anyone on the front row. Second. Okay. I'm sorry.
Pardon me, but I believe I spoke out of turn with the earlier presentation I
That's
made
all
on
right.
behalf of the museum, but thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
We
Second
heard you,
row.
Chuck.
Good morning.
Good morning, County Commissioners, and thank you for having us here. I'm Karen Giffen. I'm with Hospice of Washington County. I'm the AVP of Mission Advancement, and this is Maria Reed, and she is our bereavement supervisor. We want to thank you for having this opportunity to maybe add us to this list. Hospice is the only licensed provider of hospice care in Washington County. Every day, we have potentially 150 and more on our census with Hospice of Washington County. And we go to wherever they call home in Washington County, whether it is their home, assisted living, nursing home, and sometimes even if they're homeless. So we work with everybody. We do not turn anyone away due to the inability to pay. And one of our services that we do not get any reimbursement for is our bereavement services. And we not only work with hospice families, but any family in Washington County, whether it's due to loss of overdose, loss of suicide, maybe an emergent death. We work in the schools. And since 2020, we have had an influx and increase of this need in Washington County. And this is really the main reason we wanted to be added onto this list. If you have any questions, we did send a digital brochure as well. And I know many of you have had your own hospice story, and we have worked with you. And so we would just be very honored to be put on this list.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Second row, third row, fourth row. Jeff.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Robert Garrett. I'm the new Executive Director for the Scouts in the area. And on behalf of the almost 700 youth in Washington County and about 500 adults, thank you very much for all you all do. The impact of scouting, as one of the commissioners alluded to, it takes a village to raise a family, to raise our children. If I can get a show of hands real quick of anybody that was an Eagle Scout in the room. Front and back. All right, anybody who was ever in scouting, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, any of that. How about, keep your hands raised. How many of you had kids in scouting? Grandkids? You can see how much impact scouting in general has had on the community just in this room. We have so many things we do with these youth, teaching them to be self-reliant, teach them morals and values, things they can't necessarily get in the classroom, all in an outdoor-based character education program. If you've got any questions, I'll be around, but please consider us for the Section 108. Thank you.
I have a few
Sir,
concluding comments. Is there anyone else to testify? Okay, seeing none, Commissioners, I do want to remind you that inclusion of an organization on the 1108 list does not mean that the organization will receive funding from the county. It simply means that they are eligible to potentially receive funding, and these funding determinations are made through the Community Organization Funding Committee process as part of the county's budgetary process. So, it would be appropriate at this time to close the public hearing, as there doesn't appear to be anyone else who wishes to testify.
The public hearing is, do we want to ask the commissioners, or we're going to take it under
After you
advisement?
close it, I guess.
Close it and then-
Yeah. So the public hearing is now concluded. The commissioners will consider the matter at an upcoming meeting.
Kirk, I think you said it, but there's several on this list is who's applied. Are they already deemed to be eligible, or do we know that for sure?
I'm sorry,
To be eligible to meet the criteria to receive funding if they so were awarded funding? Have they been?
this doesn't have anything to do with the eligibility criteria that the Community Organization Funding Committee may have. This is simply a request that they be placed on.
So that the committee will decide whether they're eligible or not?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. We have, my office has verified that they're in good standing, that their names are correct, but this is an administrative perfunctory matter. The actual evaluation of any applications that they may make happens by the Community Organization Funding Committee.
We can take action today, can we not?
Are you looking for a motion to accept all these names or some of these names, or?
We can proceed however you like. We will prepare a resolution that has the actual ones you decide, or all of them, for formal action. But if you give us direction as to what you'd like to do, that can happen today, or it can happen at a later meeting.
Can someone define what Friends of KC, is that Inc. is?
I'm not familiar with the organization personally.
I mean, the ones on here that I know, I'm good with, hospice, the museum, scouting. But I don't know about, I want to vote on a blanket if I don't even know what the organization does.
Doesn't make them qualify to get money. This is just to be on the list. That doesn't, just being on the list doesn't mean they get any.
But I don't want to vote for
funding.
something that I don't know what they do.
The handout included says that they are founders, their founder's dog, Casey, went missing in 2015, so it looks like it's a nonprofit lost pet recovery group.
Okay, yeah, I'd be good with all of them.
So we can take action today, correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
Other thoughts or comments?
I want a motion to take action today to accept all the names.
Yeah, so it would be appropriate to make a motion to approve the organizations who've made application to be included on the 1-108 list.
I make that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Before I call for a vote, any other discussion or comments? The only thing I'd like to say is that the committee is ultimately to pick and choose and make the recommendations.
Yeah, I understand that, and I'm all for this, and my vote would be yeah, but I don't want to move them forward if I don't know what they do.
I understand.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So.
We ready to vote? Any other? All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Next item is proclamation recognizing September, October, and November as forget-me-not months. And I think JR's here. Morning, Mr. Arnold. How are you? Jeff, you want to
wording.
present this one? Jeff.
This thing goes from September, October, November, and it's basically just gives us the right to set our tables up at different places that have already been arranged, and we also offer at those tables information to veterans in the local area who don't know how to go about getting their disabilities. And I myself only get 10%, but that's all I felt I deserved, and they seem to sort of take that with a tongue-in-cheek and say everybody else wants 100%. Well, I don't believe in taking things that I don't deserve. And I feel 10% is where I meet the qualifications. But there are plenty of people around that you see who, in fact, I was out here this morning waiting at a parking place, and I saw a guy with one leg. And I told Carolyn, I said, people complain every day about the government not taking care of them and not doing the right thing, and there's nothing wrong with them. Here's a guy that has one leg and he's out working. And I give him all the credit in the world. So, but that's basically what we do, is to get the people who are not represented and get them into an organization that will represent them. And that's why we put in for the permission to do so. That's basically it.
Okay. Mr. Arnold, we have a proclamation to present, and I'm going to ask one of my fellow commissioners that are a veteran if they would like to. Harvey?
Read the whole thing.
Right away.
Rank has its privilege.
Colonel.
Want me over there?
Sure.
By the flag, sir. We have a long proclamation to read, okay, for everybody. Come on over next to the camera here. So, next to the flag, sorry. So, proclamation, Disabled American Veterans Organization, Forget-Me-Not Months, September, October, and November 2023. Whereas the Disabled American Veterans Organization offers free services to disabled veterans and their families in filing claims for government benefits, as well as the resolution of problems regarding employment, health care, and counseling. And whereas the Disabled American Veterans Organization strives to respond to emergency needs arising in the family of any disabled veteran. And whereas the community wishes to express a deep and continuing sense of gratitude to those disabled veterans who gave so much to protect and preserve our way of life. And whereas the Disabled American Veterans Organization has chosen September, October, and November 2023 for its annual Forget-Me-Not Drive in Washington County, and pledges that all contributions will be utilized for disabled veterans and their families in our community. Now therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Washington County, Maryland, hereby recognize September, October, and November as Forget-Me-Not months, and encourage all citizens to join in and support those who have given so freely to protect and defend the rights and freedom of us all. Signed by the Board of Commissioners of Washington County, awarded the 29th day of August, 2023.
Thank you very much.
Here you go. Take a look at the camera. Here we go.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank the people I'm talking to up here. I do see that everybody I voted for is sitting here. And I'd like to.
They are.
You want that?
Oh, we're getting a picture up front here with everybody.
I can if you go where you want me to go.
We're right up here in the middle, sir.
You're in the center.
JR, I see you in quarters, you walking your dog every Sunday. That's me and that black truck always tooting at you.
I feel like I know most of the people here.
I think he sold me a car or something.
And Terry, we get you in the center.
Probably did.
We get you right here in the center.
Right over here.
Yeah.
JR, you gonna move this way a little bit?
Slide down there.
I especially know Mr. Barr.
There we go. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for your service.
Good to see you. That's all.
Yeah.
You look good.
You do too.
Thank you very much.
Sure can.
Next on the agenda is presentation by Meritus Health on their community health work program. Good morning.
Well, thank you very much, Commissioners. Good morning to all of you. Malik Joshi from Meritus Health, and I'm really, first of all, just thank you for all you do for our community, and thank you for the opportunity to share with you some of the work we're doing in the community. We're extremely proud to be a part of this area and extremely proud to have the privilege to take care of people in this area. So we are very, very fortunate to be in a wonderful area and to take care of all the people here. I'm joined by Dave Lair. Dave is our Chief Strategy Officer and also the Chief Operating Officer for the proposed Meritus School of Osteopathic Medicine. We have just one slide, so we thought we'd kind of run through it. Before I jump in, though, I could give you 60 seconds on this medical school. Things are all moving according to plan. Our academic building, if you've seen, has been going up and will be completed by the end of 2024. So that'll be ready for the first class in the fall of 2025, so 2 years from today. We continue to move forward on state licensure through the Maryland Higher Education Commission and also the national accreditation as well. So everything is on track in that realm. And we're also working with a developer to build student residences right on campus, which will house about 350 one- and two-bedroom residences for the medical school students so that they can walk to class and walk to the hospital. So we're pretty excited, and we'll be happy to answer any questions about that. But we wanted to start off with just some of the things we're doing in the community. I'll let Dave start with a few of the items.
Yeah. So as a mission-based nonprofit, we're able to look at the way that we provide access in physical locations and doctors and providers to the community in a different way than we might otherwise if our primary motive was only profit. So we've recently been looking at the county as a whole and where there's gaps in people's access to care and trying to fill those. One of the areas that we recently opened a brand new clinic is at the Fort Ritchie location in Cascade. So the clinic is there providing urgent care and primary care needs to the members of that community. But in addition to that, we've also been able to partner with their community center and do some really, I think, impactful things to help the community, including we have community health workers doing health fairs there on a regular basis. They've screened over 80 members of the community for blood pressure, caught a couple of folks who were newly diagnosed as a part of that with hypertension and got them to get into a care pathway, a care plan with their provider to be able to get on blood pressure medications or other things to manage their health. So hopefully able to promote a much healthier community. The other thing that we've been doing across the whole county, but extending through this partnership with the Fort Ritchie Community Center, is about losing 1 million pounds across our region. So over 75 members of the Fort Ritchie community have signed up and are logging their pounds and contributing to that overall goal, to the bold goal for 2030. So we're proud of that work, and we've been seeing really positive health outcomes that we want to extend to other locations. One of the locations that we're planning to have open by the end of this calendar year is in Hancock, Maryland, where not only will we be providing primary care, but we really want to be able to rotate some specialists through that area because it is a little bit further removed than a place like even Fort Ritchie. So we'll be rotating GI services and cardiology services there is our plan in Hancock. So that'll be a good benefit not only for the members of that community, but also our neighbors in Allegheny County who also have the same gap between Cumberland and Hagerstown, where there's a lack of those types of services. I mentioned about the health fairs. Those are being provided all through the county by our mobile clinic. You may have seen the Meritus bus wrapped with Meritus markings to deliver those health fairs all across the community. They started with some health fairs at Horizon Goodwill, and that expanded to the partnership that we have with them to have a clinic actually in the Horizon Goodwill building. And the other thing is about transportation. So if we can't physically get to you wherever you happen to be, we want to make sure that nobody in Washington County ever misses an appointment because they can't get a ride. So I had a family member who had cancer last year, and her treatment plan required her to get to a location that she couldn't drive to almost every day for a couple of weeks. The members of the church got together, and between about 10 volunteers, they created a rotation to drive that person to their appointments. But without that, it would have been a major burden on access to care. So we want to be able to provide that. We're launching an initiative where we are planning to invest $1 million in drivers and vans to be able to, again, make sure that anybody who needs an appointment across the county can get that by coordinating with their Meritus practice to get them the ride that they need.
Adding beyond medical services is social services. And we know to improve health of a community, you have to do both. So we've been working on a program called our Care Caller program to call lonely people in our community. So we have 40 volunteers. Dave is a volunteer. I'm a volunteer. Our senior leaders are volunteers, amongst others. We have 2 paid care callers on our team. And we call people 15 to 20 minutes every week, every 2 weeks, just to check in, see how they're doing. We are now calling over 300 people over weekly, sometimes every 2 weeks. We ask them 4 months after they've been called, are you less lonely? It's actually updated now. 96% people say they're less lonely after being in this program. We've had people in the program for 6 months, a year and a half. We've gotten them together in a lunch get-together, and we're always trying to think about new ways to engage with them. We have lots of stories about what we've done. It's been impactful, we think, not just for them, but our care callers, the people who are calling them and building relationships with individuals. I actually just ran into my care caller in Robinwood a couple weeks ago, had never met her for a year and a half, on the phone with her, hundreds, thousands of minutes, but never met her. So it's a nice way to, again, stay connected in our community and impact the health of our community beyond the medical care, which is so important, but the social care as well. And then Dave will wrap up on our financial investment. And then we brought a celebrity guest with us. BJ Getz, community leader, president of Middletown Valley Bank, is also the board chair of Meritus Medical Center. And so we thought BJ could wrap up with us as well.
So again, going back to our mission-based nonprofit status, there's some differences between us and the other large employers in the community, in that we're required to have a community benefit that we give back, and we're proud of that. That's part of our mission. So there's a group called the Lown Institute that looks at all of the tax returns for every nonprofit hospital system across the country. There's over 1,700 hospital nonprofit organizations. And of all of those, Meritus was in number 17, the top 1% of all these, number 17 across the country, in terms of how much we give back to our community in community benefit as a percentage of our total revenue. So what that means is that the last reporting period, we gave $50 million in community benefit, including some of these things like the community health workers, which is an unbillable service. We're just doing that as part of improving the health of the community. But in addition to that, over $10 million in completely free care that we've given. So we never turn anybody away because they can't pay. That's one of our core principles. Everybody who needs to get care in our county who comes to us, we accept them, we give them what they need, and we worry about payments later. And often that means that we'll say, look, we understand your financial need, and we're going to include this in our community benefit and just write off the bills. So that's $10 million in completely uncompensated care. And the other thing, just to, another part of what we're doing over the next couple of years, including some work that's begun just over the last few weeks, is we're investing in sustainability, renewable resources, and resiliency of our medical campus grid. So we're making an investment of about $17 million over the next 2 years for solar energy. That's 1.1 megawatts. That's going to be rooftop solar, and 2 megawatts of combined heat and power that'll have an overall reduction of 23% of our greenhouse emissions when those 2 projects are complete. We're also thinking about a third phase that would add an additional just under another megawatt of solar. So that's, a big investment in trying to not only reduce our CO2 emissions, but make sure that as a resource to the community, we're always online. We have Joint Commission requirements for resiliency, and this allows us to run at 100% capacity at all times, even if the grid goes down.
Well, thank you. And commissioners, thank you for taking the time with us. I'd like to just make just a few comments as a lifelong resident of Washington County. You've heard a few things that Meritus is doing to make our community better. Certainly the hot button right now and the big thing is the medical school and the investment that the hospital is making and the efforts that they're making to move healthcare forward in Washington County and really in the region. What I've seen in my involvement with Meritus is really a group of leaders within the hospital and the leadership team with Dr. Joshi, Dave, and others on that team that are committed to this community like something I've never seen before. And you can see it from the introduction of the bold goals of Meritus for our entire community that was introduced a few years ago. You can see it with the development of the team and the leadership that has been done out there, bringing local physicians together with Meritus to really improve everything about our community. And it starts at the health. The health leads to the economic, leads to the improvement of the overall community. And what I say to the commissioners is these 2 gentlemen and the team that Dr. Joshi has assembled at the hospital deserve a tremendous applause and a tremendous credit from this entire community as to all of the efforts that they're making, including tremendous efforts on quality of care within the hospital and culture within the nursing staff and the physicians and the entire team there. They're taking not just the bold goals as they're stated, but I truly get to see from the inside, these folks live it every day and be focused on it. And they hit some highlights of the things that they're doing, not just on the medical campus, but in the entire county and the community. And this entire county should look to these leaders for the difference that they're making and applaud their efforts. And we should do everything we can as a community to support what they're doing. So publicly, I would like to thank Dr. Joshi and his team for the tremendous efforts that they're making on our behalf, our parents' behalves, our children and grandchildren's behalves for the long term. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, BJ. We appreciate the commissioner's time. Thank you to our board. As BJ said, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the stewardship of great community leadership. We love our community, and we love the opportunity to take care of our community. Questions?
Comments, questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for everything you're doing.
Dr. Joshi, and to your team up there, I've seen some great things with Meritus recently and would just like to thank you. I think Cascade deserves a primary care provider in their community. I know when, you probably can't say, but I'll say it, when Valley Health left Hancock, that had a lot of citizens worried. There's other providers, but that was their provider. And you know what? They don't have the luxury that I did. That was my PCP for over a decade. I can come to Hagerstown and see her when I need to. But many older citizens, they can't get on the interstate and travel. They don't want to combat the truck traffic or whatever it might be. because Hancock is closed off from the rest of Washington County except through the interstate. And that creates a big detriment to someone's health that you wouldn't imagine, but it does. And so talking about bringing in specialty providers in particular, that's long been a dream of many. I think, things work out and happen for a reason, I believe. And although we lost one, hopefully bringing in these specialty providers will, fill yet another need. So hopefully we'll do better going forward with your help. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time this morning.
Have a good day.
You too. Next item on the agenda is contract award purchase 1630 food services at the Washington County Detention Center.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brandy Nagelbauer in Purchasing Department.
Major Craig Rowe, Warden Detention Center.
The recommendation I have for you this morning is the contract award PUR 1630 food services at the Washington County Detention Center. Move to award the contract to the responsible proposer, Aramark Correctional Services out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, for a total proposal amount of $978,930 based on estimated annual quantities of meals and the proposer's unit price. Also, we do seek your approval for a budget transfer in the amount of $170,840 from the general operations account to the food services account. The recommended contractor shall furnish food services at the Washington County Detention Center to include inmate and staff meals for 7-day work weeks. The program is designed for 375 inmates. The contract term is for a period of 1 year, tentatively to begin September 1st, 2023, with the option for the county to renew up to 4 consecutive additional 1-year periods. Annual price increases or decreases are covered based on the producer price index. Advantages of this contract are as follows. The county funds are not encumbered for inventory. Guaranteed prices will help in aiding annual budgeting for these services. Cost savings in the services, and the county will not be responsible for the recruitment or the retention of the staffing with the vendor. The current contract with Aramark was awarded in 2018. The request for proposal was advertised in the local newspaper, the State of Maryland's eMaryland Marketplace Advantage website, and the county's website. The RFP document was downloaded by 20 companies. 3 were present at the pre-proposal conference, and we did receive 2 proposals. An amount of $808,090 was approved for the FY24 line item budget for the detention center's food services, and $170,840 will be transferred from the general account for these services. And again, we're seeking 2 approvals, 1 to award and 1 for the budget transfer.
And I just want to add that the budget transfer is actually reducing contributions to the pension fund. We did include a 14% increase for this particular line item, and it came in closer to 30%. That's why we need to reduce, or to increase this line item and reduce the contributions to the pension fund for it, to cover it.
So a 30% increase in the cost of food?
I believe that's correct.
I'm not opposed to this, let me just say up front, but a question. I know our local Commission on Aging has been in contact with the Sheriff's Department in years past and about possibly tying into this contract for food services for Meals on Wheels like some other counties do. And I know they've been unsuccessful in moving in that direction as a way to save money, serve more seniors. Do you think as we look at this next year, that might be a possibility? I know that's what's done in some other counties. I think there's some concerns about senior dietary requirements that Meals on Wheels program requires is different than other population demographics. But so there was a concern about the food wouldn't be the same. But if there is kind of an opportunity to create that efficiency through the purchasing process of food for detention centers in other counties, I'd really like to see if we can do that here in Washington County too.
I think we can reach out to them and see if we can work with the vendor. It's a possibility maybe they could utilize our contract. We wouldn't have to wait till next year, but we can absolutely look into that.
Because I know the requirements with Meals on Wheels is because federal funding is involved, and anytime you involve the federal government, things get easier, right? They're having difficulty. They're facing those same inflationary prices that we are in, and vendors that in the past that had provided that service just will no longer do it, and they're having to choose higher cost alternatives just to keep the food coming. So I think if we could help with that, I think that would be a good partnership. I was surprised when I first learned of it a couple years ago, but I know it would be important.
Commissioner, if I could talk about that for a moment. So we did approach our current contractor, which is Aramark, which is going to be the new, remain the contractor about this. And they have some areas where they do those kind of things. The difficulty we ran into is the size of our kitchen at the detention center is not large enough to double dip into two different types of programs. I mean, it takes everything we have to provide 3 meals per day for the inmate population, and it's just not simply, it's not big enough and staffed enough. And even if they were to increase their staff, there's not enough space there to do it, is what we understand.
Okay.
So it would be having to find a place where it could be done.
Okay. Well, and I appreciate that, and that is something I heard too. That is something I heard also. But maybe if we could just revisit that conversation nonetheless, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Motion?
Motion to approve the contract as noted.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
gotta do did we do the budget transfer? Is that 2 votes?
Do you want a separate vote for
It's
that?
all in the same motion.
It's all in the same.
Okay, all right.
Next item is intergovernmental cooperative purchase, INTG-23-0126, 1 Tiger Boom mower and 1 Flail mower. Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing.
Zane Rao, Deputy Director of Highways.
Subject is intergovernmental cooperative purchase, INTG 23-0126. This is for 1 Tiger Boom mower and 1 Flail mower. The motion is to authorize by resolution for the Highway Department to purchase 1 Tiger Boom mower and 1 Flail mower for the purchase in an amount of $95,438.86, and to utilize another jurisdiction's contract was awarded by Sourcewell, contract number 070821-TRG to Tiger Mowers, LLC of Sequin, Texas. The Code of Public Law does allow for this board to participate in a purchase of services and goods, even though if you weren't not part of that process. There's a cost savings in doing that, utilizing another contract. We don't have to worry about putting together a bid specification, going through the evaluation, and making the awards and all of that. Funds are budgeted, and you do have the price quote from Tiger. Questions?
Motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second to approve as submitted. All in favor by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Next item is intergovernmental cooperative purchase, INTG 23-0125, 5 new 2023 Ford F-350 and Super Cab pickup trucks.
Again, Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing.
Zane Rao, Deputy Director of Highways.
This subject is intergovernmental cooperative purchase, INTG 23-0125, for 5 new 2023 Ford F-350 Super Cab pickups. The motion is to authorize by resolution for the Highway Department to purchase 5 new 2023 Ford F-350 all-wheel drive Super Cab trucks from Heritage Fleet Services Incorporated of Milford, Delaware, for the purchase price of $61,400 each, for a total sum of $307,000, and to utilize another jurisdiction's contract that was awarded by the State of Maryland Department of General Services, contract 001B3600198 to Heritage Fleet Services Incorporated. The Highway Department is going to replace 5 vehicles that meet the county's requirements for replacement, and the Code of Public Law does allow for this board to participate, as mentioned before, and funds are budgeted in the department's equipment line account item for these purchase, and there is a quote attached from Heritage Fleet Services. Are there any questions?
How long take to get them, Zane? Are they in stock somewhere?
We're getting two that we anticipate mid-October, and they were ordered last November, so they're running about a year. Equipment is up to a year and a half.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Just a quick question. Rich, would you be able to, Rick, I'm sorry, would you be able to get us a listing of items we've sold on govdeals.com? Would that come from your department?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Now, do you want it for, what period of time do you want that for? Last year up till?
For the last year, maybe the last fiscal year? Would that be good?
Okay.
Okay. Next item, Intergovernmental Cooperative Purchase, INTG 23-0127, one John Deere utility tractor for the Highway Department.
This subject is intergovernmental cooperative purchase, INTG 23-0127, for one John Deere utility tractor. The motion is to authorize a resolution for the Highway Department to purchase one John Deere 5105M utility tractor for the purchase in an amount of $76,373.32, and utilize another jurisdiction's contract was ordered by Sourcewell, contract number 110719-JDC to John Deere of Carrion, North Carolina. The Highway Department is requesting to replace one tractor that meets the county's replacement guidelines, and that tractor replacement will be sold on Gov Deals. And the Code of Public Law does allow this board to participate in the purchase of goods and service, even if we were not a part of that contract. And the funds are budgeted in the department's equipment account number as listed on the ARFF. And you have the attachment from the vendor on as far as the pricing or the breakdown for the tractor. Questions?
No, I just got a curious question. I always got a curious question. How do you buy that? It's coming out of North Carolina?
I'm not sure if that comes out of North Carolina or if that's just their corporate office.
It gets, that includes, this is curious questions. Does it deliver it here or?
It gets delivered to Glad Hill Tractor, and then they upfit the boom and the mower.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion second. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, gentlemen. Next item is Intergovernmental Cooperative Purchase, INTG 23-0128, one Mack chassis cab with a dump body for the Highway Department.
Subject is intergovernmental cooperative purchase, INTG 23-0128, for one Mack chassis and cab with a dump body. The motion is authorized by resolution, the Highway Department to purchase one Mack chassis cab with dump body from Baltimore Potomac Truck Centers of Bladensburg, Maryland, for the cost of $277,810, and to utilize the jurisdiction contract ordered by Sourcewell, contract number 060920-MACo. It was ordered to Baltimore Potomac Truck Centers. The Highway Department is replacing one dump truck that meets the county's guideline for replacement, and that vehicle will be sold on Gov Deals as all the others. And the Code of Public Law does allow for this board to participate in the purchase of goods and services, even though we were not a part of that. And the budget is in place for this purchase. Questions?
Hey, going it, Zane, your whole fleet just died right there, didn't it?
I'm telling you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion is second on the floor. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Spent a lot of money today.
Yeah, don't hurry back.
I noticed our MACo visitors are not here yet. How about if we move on to the Keefer Road Bridge superstructure replacement? Scott, you're up.
Thank you. Good morning. Scott Hobbs, Director of Engineering. I'm here to recommend the board award the supply of precast, pre-stressed concrete box beams for Keefer Road Bridge to the lowest responsible bidder Penn Stress, a division of McInnes Group, LLC of Roaring Spring, Pennsylvania, in the amount of $62,700. Project was advertised on the county's website and the state of Maryland's website, eMaryland Marketplace Advantage. One quotation was received on Friday, August 18, 2023. Keefer Road needs replacement with the superstructure due to the condition of the existing steel beams and timber deck. The precast, pre-stressed concrete adjacent box beams would be scheduled for delivery this fall, and the work would be anticipated to be completed within 3 weeks by our highway department. Road detour signs will be posted prior to the start of work. We provided a map showing what the detour route would be for that time frame. This is a budgeted capital improvement plan project. Again, this is a superstructure replacement and work by the highways and delivery of the superstructure of the bridge. Any
Scott,
questions?
you've said superstructure a couple times. I barely said it. Can you just, I take it that has a significant meaning to it.
Yes, bearings and beams and bridge deck, anytime you see that, that's the superstructure, the abutments, the piers that you see going into the water, oftentimes that's the substructure. So we consider those two portions of the bridge when we talk about different bridges, and one of the ways to repair bridges is to replace the top portion, or the superstructure in our case is what we're calling it.
Okay.
With the beams and the deck.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve as submitted. All in favor by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Michelle, do we want to move folks from Neil's here? Do we want to just move on and we'll come back to MACo?
I think that's fine.
Okay. Next item is approval of adjustment form from Airport's FY24 budget to account for wages, benefits of ARFF chief and facilities management grade increase. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Andrew Usherwin, Director of Public Works.
Neil Doran, Airport Director. So this is in line with the previous decisions of the County Commission that we established the aircraft rescue firefighting position, the fire chief position, and made that higher. And we also had an increase in grade for our facilities manager. So what we're seeking today is merely a motion so that we can fill out the forms for our Budget and Finance Department to make an adjustment to our fiscal year 24 budget. It was when the budget was put together in January of last year, we were still continuing with our arrangement with DES at that time. So now the decision's been made, we just need to have the authorizations to complete the form.
No additional funds are needed from the general fund to support this budget adjustment. The airport fund is completely self-supporting due to the amount of federal funding they receive.
Motion?
Motion to approve as written.
Looking for a second.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and second to approve as submitted. All in favor by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Moving right along, approval, signature of updated and reissued business permit for Allegiant Airlines includes increases to several rates and fees paid by Allegiant Airlines effective July 1st, 2023.
Yes, so when Allegiant Airlines came in 2012, a business permit was issued to them. And so what we're seeking to do here is reissue a new business permit with them. And we've had previous discussions with Allegiant Airlines and with Air Service Development Consultants that we could adjust some of the fees we charge them for ground handling and our landing fee and the use of our terminal. And they're in agreement. They've signed their name to the business permit. So what we're seeking here is authorization for the board president to sign, as well as the county attorney and myself. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Neil, I assume these increases in the structure of this was more than likely discussed at the Allegiant Air Conference when staff participated in that several months ago.
It was, yes. Numerous conversations. The relationship with Allegiant is strong. They understand that over the last 10, 11, 12 years, our costs have increased, inflation, a need for additional people to continue to support the staff. And this is still a competitively low rate that we're charging them. But it's something that would help and contribute approximately $64,000 additional dollars to the budget every year.
Just for the record, I think Allegiant flies in and out of 130, 140 airports, and we're in the top 10 or bottom 10, however you want to look at it. Is that correct?
Yes, we were the 8th lowest cost airport. And so looking at these fees every once in a while is good to keep track of that.
Motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Any other comments, remarks? Hearing none, all in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
We are running way ahead of schedule. Again, our MACo friends are not here yet, so we want to take a 5-minute
Let's
recess.
take a break.
Thank you.
To welcome my good friends from MACo, Maryland Association of Counties, here with us this morning, our Honorable President Calvin Ball from Howard County, and our Executive Director Mike Sanderson. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
So good to see you.
It's great to see you, and it's an honor to be here. I'm going to have Michael do most of the substance, but let me just say being here in Washington County is not only an honor because of the important role that you play for the state and with MACo, but my dear friend, President Barr, who was formerly president of MACo, did a fantastic job. It's just such a pleasure to be here. MACo is an organization, as you know, that works so hard on behalf of all counties in the state of Maryland. In fact, just this past session, they analyzed almost 800 bills and advocated for each and every one of our counties. And then just last couple weeks ago, we had our annual summer conference, record attendance up about 30%. And so really appreciate your engagement, your partnership, and your willingness to let us come and visit with you to not only present, but continue in collaboration. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael Sanderson, our Executive Director.
Well, good morning. Welcome the time to be with you all this morning. Once again, I'm Michael Sanderson. I'm the Director of the Maryland Association of Counties, and as President Ball indicated, we have an office in Annapolis and a staff. We try and serve, assist, educate all the county elected officials, try and advocate on behalf of your services and your constituents and so forth on policy matters and so forth. We have a blended role of service back to you and also representing local governments and your services before policymakers at the state level. So I've handed out a packet of stuff which has, I'm sure, a couple dozen pages of whatnot. That's sort of our bent. My inclination is not to go through that in a whole lot of detail, but it is sort of a skim through of a few issues that are sort of on our minds. Most of this is drawn from the Conduit Street blog, which is our principal avenue of getting information out to the world and also to our members. I want to be respectful of your time and your agenda today and sort of hit a few high notes and talk about just a handful of topics that are mostly policy and a little service. And then if there's something that I've missed or something that you'd like to get into beyond that, that's probably the best use of our collective time. So with that, let me try and talk about a handful of issues, and I'll start with the state's fiscal situation. That's my upbringing as a fiscal guy, and I tend to start there because so many things that happen at the state level with their budget and their pressures filter down to local governments. The story has changed in the last sort of calendar year or so pretty dramatically. When Governor Moore was elected and sworn into office, within the last year, he inherited a budget that basically was a pretty self-executing circumstance, being able to say, well, we can afford all the things that are formula-driven and have natural flow, and we can afford to give COLAs to our state employees and all the sort of routine sort of things year to year. So it was a, yes, we can do all the things on the list sort of budget, and that made for a pretty peaceful first year for a new governor with a legislature that still has a lot of new leadership and so forth. In a year of change in Annapolis, we ended up not having the sort of fiscal tumult that sometimes happens. There are a lot of times I'm sitting at this desk talking about, we got squeezed in the budget. They shifted some cost onto county governments in one way or another. That's become a too common story. We just didn't face those kind of pressures in this past year's budget. However, every year the state convenes its revenue, the Bureau of Revenue Estimates convenes and sort of revises and sharpens their pencil, revises their final revenue numbers that you balance the state budget to. They do that in March every year, just before the legislature finalizes the budget. They wrote down revenues by $300 or $400 million this spring, and in Annapolis, it felt like a record scratch moment. That suddenly it was like, oh, maybe they're taking the punch bowl away, and maybe this like relatively comfortable economic times we've been in, this weird economy the last couple of years where we've had tax revenues coming in relatively healthy, even though some people have felt like there are questionable signs in the American economy. I think a lot of folks still feel that way, even though we have low unemployment. It doesn't feel like a gung-ho economy in the normal way. So anyway, caution on fiscal issues, and that carried over to the governor's message at the MACo conference just a couple of weeks ago, where he talked about we're going to have some challenges, we're going to have to say no to some things because it doesn't look like the happy days are just going to stay forever and ever, and that sort of economic overachievement probably was temporary. Maybe not a bubble per se, but we're probably coming off of some sort of a bump. So that probably means the year or two ahead will end up being a bit tighter and a little more, to the edge on fiscal issues. That leaves us, in our familiar position of defending local government issues and our services and so forth. We don't want the state's fiscal solution to be on the backs of local governments, so we'll earn our keep on that front.
And if I just may to also add to that, at the MACo Summer Conference, the governor always gives the closing address, and he had at the core of his speech concerns about the fiscal house of the state of Maryland for the foreseeable future. So to Michael's point, I think it will be something that we're going to have to look at very carefully in the coming months and years.
So let me jump through a handful of other policy issues, and I want to close with school funding, which has become a primary force in driving county budgets and your forecasts fiscally and so forth. So let me close with that, but I'll skip through a couple other policy things on the way to getting there. Mostly what I want to focus on are issues that sort of have a path ahead, as opposed to just closing the books on stuff from last year. Last legislative session, we worked hard, we did all I thought of things. There's some stats on our handout about different issues that we followed, and we moved the needle on lots of different things, but I'll focus on a few things that still have a life ahead of them. One I'll speak to is energy issues generally. I think we are sensing a change in tone with state leadership on energy issues. The Department of Energy, there's an energy administration, the Department of the Environment and the Energy Administration and the Public Service Commission are three separate players at the state level, all of whom have new leadership and all of whom play a role in one level or another on energy issues. I think we will see over this 4-year term a continued effort to move toward electrification of more and more of the state's physical plant, new buildings, maybe a mandate or at least incentives or push in the direction of making sure new buildings and homes are wired for electricity and not merely natural gas. I think the idea is it's easier to green up the electrical grid than it is to go back to a building that only has natural gas and try and make that less of a carbon footprint. So thinking 30 years down the road, you start building buildings with that in mind down the road. Some of you who are invested in the electrical infrastructure, not naming any names, might be curious about that. But I think that's an issue that's coming to the state level. But alternative energy, we know the state has committed to a renewable portfolio standard that is ambitious and aggressive, that more and more of our energy needs to be clean. Awful lot of it needs to be solar, and there's only so far you can cart electrons. You can't put the panels out in Kansas and bring that electricity to Maryland in any practical way. It's got to be relatively nearby. So what does that mean? We know your county is among several who have been in court and in process over the location of solar facilities, and large-scale solar is effectively no longer subject to local zoning. We have some degree of freedom with asking for setbacks and location requirements to some degree, but for the most part, it's the State Public Service Commission that really holds court over siting and approval of large-scale solar. I think that balance is pushing in the opposite direction. That solar is very popular and very well regarded, and the idea of why are these towns and these counties still in the way of this solar project over here? And Big Solar is really, really interested in having a clearer landing path for siting solar facilities. So that may mean pressure on your prime farmland and sensitive areas and so forth. We know that's a tension with local zoning. I'm putting that on your radar because it's an issue they're not done in Annapolis thinking about this, I think. Another thing that I'll mention is a matter in both our urban, suburban, and rural jurisdictions is we're having a devil of a time staffing our firefighters, whether it's career or volunteer. Getting a new generation of folks who want to pursue fire service either as a career or as an add-on has just been increasingly difficult to do. The statistics are obvious. The number of folks who are relying on sort of legacy members of volunteer companies to still go on rides because there's just not a wave of 25 and 35-year-olds knocking on the door saying they want to do it. How do we find a way to do that? We got a bill last year to bring together stakeholders on a commission to try and find some answers. Probably needs some state force multiplier of what we can do locally with things like LoSAP agreements and tuition reimbursement or free training opportunities at our community colleges. We're gonna have to think outside the box a little bit here, but this is an issue that all of our jurisdictions have raised as a long-term concern and one that we're hoping we can get some state help on trying to tackle. I'll mention one other kind of nitpicky little thing, but this is the sort of thing that the papers don't pick up on, but it's meaningful for the progress of local government, literally this room. For 40-some years, we've had a law on the books in Maryland that if you were setting your tax rate, your property tax rate at a level where you'd bring in $1 more than last year in tax revenues, you were obliged by state law to put an ad in the paper saying notice of tax increase, because people's assessments are going up. And if you leave the tax rate where it's been, that means you're bringing in more dollars. You're exceeding what the state has called the constant yield tax rate. So you've probably had once a year, a hearing most years, probably in this room, where residents read in the paper, because the state literally said what the font size needed to be in the advertisement, the exact wording, notice of tax increase. They think you're raising their tax rate. And in most years, I know most counties in most years leave the tax rate where it is and make do with that level of budget. But you get folks, they got their torch, they got their pitchfork, they're all angry about a tax increase, and it turns out, oh, all that meant was my property's appreciated some, and so I'll pay incrementally more on that, or I'm being phased in, that sort of thing. Most of them put out the torch and go home. It's been a confusing law for years. It always felt impossible to change it and make it more sensible. But this year, we threaded that needle and changed the law. So starting next year, if you're going to raise your rate and you're contemplating doing that, you'll go through the same process and put the ad in the paper saying, we're contemplating an actual rate increase, and folks should know about that through the same process. But if you're leaving the rate where it is and it happens to bring in more money because assessments are going up, that's not the same thing, and it doesn't trigger the same law. It's tough to be it's tough to appear that you're anti-transparency, but honestly, this was a law that I think was more trouble than it was worth. People were more confused about it than they were well served by the information, I think. So having it when you're raising the rate, I think, is a better happy medium. I'll mention one real quick fiscal matter I think in the last page of today's packet is some information about a service that MACo is providing on behalf of our members, as well as some towns and libraries and community colleges. This is for this The green eye shade folks call it OPEB. It means other post-employment benefits, and you may get a report every so often from your fiscal staff talking about you probably have a long-term liability for health insurance pledges that you've made to your employees after they retire. It's pretty similar to a pension. You have to report it on your fiscal books as a long-term liability, just like a pension, but there aren't many jurisdictions that have a funding mechanism the same thing as a pension system. I don't know, I apologize, I haven't done my homework. I don't know where Washington County stands on this matter, but what MACo has created is a multi-party trust fund. Basically, if you want to invest today's assets long-term so that you'll have more money when you need to pay out for these health insurance benefits tomorrow in 10, 20, 30 years, we've created a plug-and-play opportunity to do that. So if that sounds like a good fit for your jurisdiction, if you've made a contribution recently, the whole idea is to share the overhead costs. You have to put the money into a trust to be able to invest it in equities and in long-term instruments and that sort of stuff. It's different than public funds. It would be cumbersome for every single jurisdiction to do this alone, so we created a pot together. So a board of trustees with excellent advisors and all that kind of stuff. If it sounds interesting, I would hope somebody could drop me a line. We'd be delighted to have you join the ranks. And last but not least, education funding is the issue that lies in the background of just about every fiscal matter that's before county governments. Now, the state has embarked on an ambitious course to accelerate and increase our expectations of what we get out of our public schools, what we owe to our students. And those goals are noble, they're worthy, they're exciting when you read the details, like the idea of where we might be at the end of this 10 years with these investments is inspiring. It's also extremely expensive, and the principal role of county governments in education is not to set curriculum or make decisions on education policy. We've got a school board and superintendents and principals to do those sorts of things, but your role is as a principal funder, and the state is asking more of itself, and it's also asking more of the counties to contribute toward education. We're around year 3 of a 10-year phase-in, and we're already seeing some jurisdictions like breaking the piggy bank and looking under all the couch cushions to make this year's budget work. And then next year is another step beyond. Basically what this is doing, we've done maintenance of effort for those of you who are veterans to the fiscal game. It used to be the rule was the county needs to keep funding per pupil what you did the prior year in order to get your extra state money by their formula. Maintenance of effort was the law of the land. Now there's 2 tiers, and the second is you need to be doing your share of these state, the sort of blueprint for Maryland, the short term. The blueprint for Maryland is the shorthand term for this 10-year plan, and they've divided up all these costs based on your population, your categories of kids, into here's the state share, here's the local share, and each of these years the county needs to be doing its local share. We have sat before other jurisdictions with their county commissioners and councils and had some candidly, complicated conversations as counties are saying, for us to be able to afford next year and the year before and the year after that is going to really cripple the rest of our county budget. We may put 55 cents of our county budget into education, but then what we do for health and human services and local transportation and just functioning of government and getting permits approved and things like that is all at risk because that slice of the pie is going to be squeezed. Those are the mechanics of the blueprint. I think state leaders are aware that this is difficult, but I don't have a clear forecast of what the next step looks like. Some folks in Annapolis in the legislature are talking about this may be the year for a reframing of some of the timetables and so forth. We're already behind the schedule on rolling out pre-K. Early childhood education was supposed to be part of this plan. We haven't got enough providers who've knocked on the door and said, I want to be fully certified to do that. That was kind of part of the plan, is they would want to do that. So anyway, I'll leave with a mention of the blueprint as an issue that's come up at these conversations we've had with your counterparts. It's on our minds. It's on Annapolis's mind, but I don't have something that's as simple as here's the roadmap and here exactly what the next steps are going to look like. We've got a number of counties who are concerned about their ability to fund it, but I think there's also a lot of leadership in Annapolis and a lot of leadership at the county level who still believe that getting to those goals is a really worthy thing to try and do. Let's just try and figure out how to do it in a reasonable way. So let me wrap there, take one breath, and then if there's something I've talked about that I didn't get deep enough into, or if I missed something that's high on your agenda, we'd be delighted to hear your input, comments, questions, personal attacks, whatever you got.
Thank you. Comments, questions?
I'm curious about something. You've alluded to it a little bit, as there's a push for more fuel-efficient vehicles, which is fine. I want to buy a Tesla one day, and one day I will have one. But I'm just curious about the gas tax revenues, that correspond to that. Not that they've been making it back to the counties like they should have been for many years, but I know other states are toying with recording everyone's mileage each year. I think some states out along the West Coast are looking at that. If we're not selling gas for the consumption of vehicles at the rates we used to, what's the state looking at for alternatives for collecting that revenue?
So you are spot on with one of the most interesting policy issues we face, and it's not exclusive to Maryland, but that we face right now. That you set it up exactly right, Commissioner. We have for decades, we have basically treated transportation as kind of a user pays public service. That if you drive on the roads, you're contributing to the wear and tear on the roadways and so forth. And the easiest, you can put tolls every mile on every road, and that's an awkward way to do things, but taxing people on the motor fuel was an indirect way of saying the people who drive the most and the most miles and so forth contribute to the most wear and tear, and they pay the most in gas tax. And so that was the big workhorse. You pay a tax when you buy a car, but you pay a tax on your gasoline, your motor fuel, diesel, or whatever. And that's been the big workhorse for funding transportation through all modes. And we have a hole in the boat now. When it was 2% of the vehicles on the road were not using motor fuel, it was sort of a rounding error. But you can see where the numbers are today is meaningful, and where you project it to happen over the next decade. If we have 20 or 30% of the cars on the road over the next decade are no longer using motor fuel, you've got a tilt in what used to be a user pays concept that a lot of people just bought into generally. I don't know what the answer is. There's Annapolis is fond of blue ribbon commissions where they bring in big heavy hitters and big shots to look at things like this, and that's what they've done. They passed a bill last year to say we 2-year study on transportation funding and financing to look at a number of things, but enumerated on their list of topics is, in fact, what to do about the motor fuel as an increasingly insufficient source or an incomplete source of revenue for roadways. I don't know whether you charge a fee when you buy an electric car, whether you put the transmitter to measure miles and so forth. There are a couple places that'll fiddle with that, but nobody's really dove in and really done that. I don't know what forgive me, but the idea of a special tax just on an electric car feels weird to folks. Like you do that with things like alcohol and tobacco as sort of a sin tax, and you say, we'll target those things, and you do that with cannabis as well, right? Another thing that could have been on my list to talk about, but you put a special tax on those things saying, hey, if that decreases the amount of consumption of those products by having a higher tax, that's okay societally. But in this case, like an extra tax on an electric car, well, we kind of want people to drive cleaner vehicles if they can and if they make that choice. So an extra $600 or whatever might be a reason not to do that. And it's kind of a weird spot. So a meandering answer, but fortunately, we're really well served on this Blue Ribbon Commission on Transportation Financing because we have the MACo president and a well-situated central suburban county at the table on behalf of local governments to raise our issues there. So.
And we actually had our first meeting last week, and one of the presentations was on the gas tax. And Michael very astutely noted the balance and the push-pull between making sure that we have sufficient revenue, because we do see an increase in people purchasing electric vehicles, but also supporting energy independence and all the things that come with potentially electric vehicles done well. And so there is going to be some tension there, and it is probably going to be one of the top issues that we talk about in that commission. We had our first meeting last week, and so I'm hopeful that we'll be able to explore that.
Thank you.
So, if I may, I'm Derek Harvey, and thank you for being here. And I didn't make the last MACo conference, but I've been to previous one. I'm hoping that there's serious thinking going on to make sure that we are not going to suffer the brownouts that we see in other places like California that have distressing impacts on quality of life and business. Because moving towards unreliable solar and wind as a major component, Texas has also had problems. It's a major concern for a lot of people, and I don't think we want to go down a path where we don't have reliable, consistent energy of high quality when we want it. So I think that has to be primary in the thinking. That's one thing I'd say. And then, as you can see when you visit here, Calvin, it's an agricultural county.
That's right.
Okay? And we need food, and you don't get more good cropland. It's a finite product.
That's right.
And so if we lose farmland for solar or windmills or other things, you affect not just that farmland you have available, but there's a certain density you need of agriculture in order to maintain all the peripheral support industry. And once you get below a certain point, and I'm not sure what that is, it starts to collapse. And I don't think we want that. So we're going to have to be very judicious in how we move forward, I think.
If I could just piggyback off his comment for just a second. And I think when Commissioner Harvey states that, you know, one of the things I look at with solar, you mentioned that in your opening comments, a lot of solar interest has come to Washington County because our land prices are cheaper. It's probably hard to find a plot of land, maybe 100 acres or so, in Howard County that would be as cheap as it is here in Washington County. So that seems to be like an incentive that drives a lot of these companies, and many that are from out of state, into our backyards. And then on top of that, the state tells them, well, your local government can give you a tax break. And I know this board has historically done that. I voted against those, but you know, that economic incentive for those solar companies to come here to Washington County is the land prices, because they couldn't make that same business model work to the same degree, financial degree, with the cost of land in other parts of the state. So I think that's something that it's important, but to our detriment.
Well, Commissioners Harvey and Keefer, you very astutely noted an issue that is going on and quite prevalent throughout the rest of the state and frankly the nation. In Howard County, just a hair more about my background, I spent about 13 years in the county council, and now I'm in my 5th year as county executive. On the county council, I helped negotiate the deal with our farmers and a lot of our solar leaders. In Howard County, we have more than 300 farms. So I know a lot of people kind of see Howard County and think of, you know, Columbia or Ellicott City or Elk Ridge, but the farming industry is robust and critically important throughout the state, including in Howard County. And so I agree with you 100%. So I helped negotiate that balance. Howard County also has the largest solar power purchase agreement in the state, including 11 different farms who have worked with the communities and with solar providers to have the right balance of how much could be used for solar. And it's tough. It's really a difficult balance. What I found, and one of the reasons why I have worked so hard on it, is we were losing farms at an unacceptable rate to more housing development, because a lot of our farmers were becoming 3rd, 4th, 5th generation, and they were saying, I don't want to farm anymore, it's not as sustainable. And so we were trying to come up with diversification of their revenue generation. And so that's when we had some solar, you know, we would do some wineries, some, you know, you could have wedding venues, and we're trying to keep those farms from selling to, you know, build 1,000 townhomes. And so you all are definitely going to feel some of that pressure. And I think as MACo, as an organization, one of the things that we want to always try to do is fight for local control. And what we don't want is to see at the state or national level them telling us that we have to do certain things that are in the detriment of our local counties.
I think both of you set this issue up beautifully. I will say Annapolis is pretty good at bringing a wide range of stakeholders together and trying to work out these issues that require balance. I don't want to be Pollyanna about it, but local governments will be among those players, but we'll have the Farm Bureau and some other historic preservation organizations who will, I think, add some balance to, there will be folks at the table who are like, I want silicon everywhere. I don't care about the farm, I don't care about the battlefield, right? That's fine, but that's only part of the table who's going to work on this sort of stuff.
You want to mention the winter conference?
Yes. We are so excited for the upcoming winter conference. The theme will be Eye of the Storm, and it is December 6th through 8th, I think? That's right. 6th through 8th. Please come, mark your calendars. Of course, it's a great time for us all to engage with one another, but there are so many helpful seminars. We will have topics where we're taking proposals right now on the issues that local governments are dealing with and struggling with right now, such as you'll see things on environment and energy, you'll see things on educational funding, public safety, so many different issues, and we would love and welcome your attendance and support.
Other comments, questions?
Thank you.
Thank you again. I just appreciate the trip up here today, your time, and Calvin, it's always good.
Always good to see you too, Mr. President.
So,
Well, thank you all so much and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where are you headed to next?
To lovely LaVale, join the Allegheny County Commissioner.
Do you have Allegheny County socks on to
County
show there too?
Pretty good.
Because they're going to know about it. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
okay, I think we're close to being right on schedule. Next item is the Housing Authority of Washington County, request to review the expansion of 12 new cottage apartments at the Blue Mountain Estates Senior Housing for Aging in place, low income, 55 and older, adult, lifelong residents of Washington County. This property currently has 28 apartments and a community center. Good morning.
Thank you for having us, ladies and gentlemen. I came before you in 2015 to present 16 units. So this is a similar request, but we had to make it 12 units due to the new permitting.
Okay.
Proceed?
Yes, please.
Okay. So essentially, I'm coming before you to present to you, we're expanding in Smithsburg. We would hope to expand. They're identical to the current construction and architecture of the 28 units that exist there. There's also a community center there. This property is age restricted, so it's 55 and older, and it is for low-income seniors that are Washington County residents. We have a wait list of over 200 people that would like to live there, and unfortunately, it is a wait list that is typically 5 to 6 years long. So the more we can build there, the better for the seniors that are on the wait list. We are not asking for any funding for the expansion. We are paying for it through the collection of rents in our properties. And we do have a loan that is in place, but we required a title search, and we were well aware that we needed to come before you to ask for the permission to do this expansion, but we are not requesting any support in terms of financial support.
Yeah, let me provide some background, if I may. The law governing the Housing Authority provides that the Board of County Commissioners shall review and approve each housing project that the authority proposes. This is an existing project. What they are proposing to do is the final build-out on that property. This was property that was acquired from the county in 1981. We are also asking that, as part of this process, the county adopt an ordinance that authorizes the execution of a confirmatory deed to the housing authority because there were certain reversionary provisions in the deed from 1981. We wanted to confirm that none of those reversionary occurrences had occurred that would in any way affect title to the property. And finally, given that this is the final build out of the property, it has been committed to the public use of providing housing assistance to Washington County residents, ask that the reversionary interest in the chain of title be released and extinguished.
I have two questions. I guess the first one is, this property is within the boundaries of the corporate limits of Smithsburg?
It is.
Is the mayor and council on board, and you have concurrences with them?
It is, yes, sir. We had a meeting, a public meeting in Smithsburg with their building and development permitting team and the mayor. They asked us many, many questions. They're delighted that it's going to be used for the same use that the other property is being used for.
And I guess the other question for me is, it is 55 and older adult community, so that allows it to be exempt from the school fees, the
Excise tax.
excise tax? Is that-
Excise tax. Excise tax, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Did you run into any issues with water or EDUs for this?
No, as I mentioned before, in 2015, I came before the BOCC to introduce the idea and the design that I inherited when I became the executive director for 16 units. So the testing for the proper water was done for 16 units prior to this.
Okay, so it was allocated in the planning, I guess is what you're saying.
Yes, sir, early on.
Okay.
I think we had one comment for civil for another manhole.
Okay. Motion, we have a motion?
So it'll be a motion to approve the project and to approve the ordinance authorizing execution of the confirmatory deed.
So the motion has two parts to it. Or-
Yeah, it's serving two purposes.
Right.
And then that would be the end of this project, and there's no further expansion there?
It will be maxed out, yes, sir.
Okay.
Motion, anyone?
A motion to approve the project is submitted, unless there's a question.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion, questions, concerns, comments? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Good luck with it. I know there's a number of seniors out there that are anxiously waiting.
I am too. Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Well, the lovely Leslie Hart, Faces of Farming.
Good morning, Leslie Hart, Washington County Department of Business and Economic Development. I'm here, I come every month and bring you two of our absolutely magnificent farms. I guess I just want to piggyback before I start about solar. I believe in solar, I like solar, and you know, I've walked, we have 900 farms. I've probably physically been on a good probably 700 of them and walked the fields and been on the properties. And, you know, we do have an impressive farmland, but we also have a lot of rocks. And I love the idea of putting solar fields on grazing areas that there's a lot of rocks, except we just elevate them so that the animals have protection from the sun, they can still graze. It's a win-win. But, you know, I think there's wonderful ways that we can make solar work in this community without taking valuable, productive farmlands.
If I could, Leslie, I'll just piggyback on that. At some point, I know you want to get going, Jeff, but Military facilities around the world, the parking lots have the elevated solar panels on them. Valley Mall could be one big solar panel, okay, the parking lot's there. Provides shade, protection from rain, it's elevated, you know, vehicles park underneath them, so.
Volvo's got a beautiful setup, just like that. So. All right, today, remember, we have over 900 farms in Washington County, and the census, we get a census every 5 years, that's due to come out anytime, and I am so excited to show you those results this year. We have $153 million in sales. We are the single largest industry in Washington County. We are still very much agriculturally integral to our community, and you know, I don't want to see any farms go because, listen, no farms, no food, and I like to eat. So today, I would like to present to you two farms. One is a large crop farmer, does commodity crops, Price and Price Farm, located in Keedysville area. And then the other one is 40-year-old blueberries. It's Frog Eye Blueberry down in Knoxville. So public relations, if you could roll that beautiful Faces of Farming footage.
My name is Dale Price, Price and Price Farming, and we are growing corn, soybeans, and wheat here in Keedysville, Maryland. My grandfather, he would build up the family farming operation, acquire land, and move to another farm and leave a son behind with 30 acres and enough cows to start farming, and he continually did that as he worked through his 5 sons. My father was the last boy that ended up with this piece of ground we're standing on here. This is where everybody hung out. Since the mid-'80s, this is where we did our holidays, and this is where we did our Saturday meals and family functions. This place is laced with memories and little trinkets, handmade things that the entire family's had a hand in for generations. It's amazing. 10 years ago, we had a grain bin accident. Neil, he had just started working for us, and he's still employed here, which is kind of amazing in itself after what we did to him that night. After our accident, Purdue Agribusiness called us, invited us up to see their facility in Greencastle, told us about their training programs that they use to train each and every employee that comes on board. And we hosted a rescue training weekend that encompassed grain bin rescues, grain bin evacuations, and auger entanglements. And since then, our daughter Nina has kind of stepped into that role through FFA and 4-H, and she did a training, again, I think it was 9 years later, for local fire and rescue. We've been here 3 generations here. My grandchildren would be generation 5. Our goal, I guess, is to not to worry so much about whether or not they want to farm or how long the farming operation can go along, but preserve the family atmosphere and the opportunities that getting to run on the farm and play in the straw and you know, all that I know will mean a lot to them for years to come.
I'm Dan Mills. This is Frog Eye Blueberry Farm. We have 40 acres and it's blueberry heaven. How we acquired the farm is a very interesting story. My wife and I had just moved to a place in Frederick, and I was in the corporate world, and I was in DC on some sales calls, and she calls me up in the middle of the day and says, hey, there's this place I want to show you. And I said, well, how do you even know this place? She goes, well, a couple of years ago I took the kids there. She said, I just loved it. She said, if this place ever came for sale, I would want to live there. And I came out here, and we were here for like 4 hours. And eventually the owner who started this came back, and I got a chance to meet him. So we left, and there were many offers for the place, but Hank saw something in us that he wanted us to continue on in the fashion of which he started. But he saw something in our young family, and that is what we've tried to honor in taking care of and providing a place where a lot of people can come, have a great time, get away from the city, put away their phones, enjoy Mother Nature, and have some incredible blueberries. He did all the trial and error of getting things started here. I never could have started this. I call our family caretakers. We're caretakers of something that somebody else started, and it's a gift to live here. We're just fortunate to have people come out, you know. I'm typically stick to myself, more of a quiet person, but it's so nice to come out here, and there's a lot of parents that'll come out that want their kids to experience what it means to grow stuff, to see how it's done, as opposed to just going to the grocery store. And even when you go to a grocery store and you buy, you know, a tomato or something like that, when you're the one growing it, or when you come out and pick blueberries, you just don't necessarily always take that handful right away. You kind of savor them a little bit. It's that appreciation and the connection, in my opinion, with Mother Nature.
I want to leave you with one thing today. I've been doing this job a long time, and I have the privilege and honor of seeing second-generation kids growing up and buying farms, and I'm working with them now. I have 20-somethings that I'm on my list of client base. One young lady that I'm working with right now is in the process of buying a farm in the Keedysville area, and it is such a privilege to see these youth grow up in farming, continue farming, and continue the agricultural tradition. So I'm very blessed to have a role that I love. So thank you. See you next month. Have a good closed session.
Thank you, Leslie. Okay. Looking for a motion to go into closed session for the reasons stated.
Motion to go in closed session.
Second. Motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Take a 3-minute recess and then we'll go into closed session.